When you have a creative gift, it's like someone just gave you a horse. Now you have to learn how to ride it. Here's a little fine point of writing technique that I'll pass along to you writers out there. It goes to my nurturing side of the equation. If you're getting on stage and standing in front of a group of strangers and trying to make them laugh, God bless you.
So I wanted to make a quick video talking about something that I've been doing recently. I've been trying to develop my hour of comedy. I've been a stand-up comic out here in LA for several years, and doing stand-up has taught me a lot about life, about myself. And a couple months ago, I heard a podcast, and it really did affect me in a big way. It kind of gave me a roadmap that I didn't really know to follow or kind of know to do. Over the past 5 years, you're trying to do something, for me, comedy, you're going to a room full of strangers trying to make them laugh, trying to find out what's funny to you, what's funny about you. There's a sort of a saying, what's new, what's true, and what's you. And I've been trying to kind of hone that together and figure out what that is. And, I've been lucky enough to play some pretty cool spots like the Comedy Store and the Improv in Hollywood, and play gigs in New York, Arizona, all across the country. So that's been kind of great. But to really develop as a comic for me, I wanted to kind of find a way to do that. And a podcast I heard recently with Jerry Seinfeld that Tim Ferris put on, really locked a couple things in for me and gave me sort of a roadmap, like I said, to being creative, being, gearing myself towards something, being goal-oriented in my writing as opposed to like, oh, that's a funny idea, and then I just jot it down in my phone, and then I go to an open mic and try it, or I write something down and eventually it kind of peters its way into another bit, where I really wanted to find a way, like how you come up with an hour. I might have like maybe 30 minutes at best if I cobble all my jokes together, not even my best jokes. I probably have about 30, 40 minutes. But to come up with a tight hour of very, very funny jokes like the people I admire, like a Louis C.K. or like a Taylor Tomlinson. Some of these people, you see them doing special after special after special, hour after hour after hour. And you're like, man, they're just killing it every time. How do they do that amount of work? How do they kind of produce that amount of work while doing shows and podcasts and directing and all the other stuff that they do? And this one interview with Jerry Seinfeld that Tim Ferris did really kind of locked it down, and I wanted to share it with you, some of my favorite nuggets of it. The first thing that I really kind of took from it is he gives advice on being systematic, coming up with a system.
My guiding rule is systemize. When you have a creative gift, it's like someone just gave you a horse. Now you have to learn how to ride it. You got to learn how to ride this horse. And I've seen people that are born by the dozens and dozens. I've seen people that were given black stallions. And it usually if you have a black stallion, like from that movie, mm-hmm. and you're born and they just put you on it. And that's what happens. They just put you on it. And you either learn to ride this thing or it's going to kill you. Basic system, which you already talked about at the top of the show, which is if you're going to write, make yourself a writing session. What's the writing session? I'm going to work on this problem. Well, how long are you going to work on it? Don't just sit down with an open-ended, I'm going to work on this problem. That's a ridiculous torture to put on a human being's head. It's like you're going to hire a trainer to get in shape and he comes over and you go, how long is the session? And he goes, it's open-ended. Forget it. I'm not doing it. You've got to control what your brain can take. Okay? Or you can't take that? Let's do 30 minutes. Okay, great. Now we're getting somewhere. I can do 30. Let's come up with something you can do. That's where you start everything. That's how you start to build a system. If you're going to sit down at a desk with a problem and do nothing else, you got to get a reward for that. And the reward is the alarm goes off and you're done. You need a reward at the other end of that session, which is stop now, pencils down. So that's the beginning of a system that, to me, will help almost anybody learn to write.
And for me, that's so huge, just because so much of success, when I see these people succeeding, I'm like, they're just doing it over and over and over again. And every time, you try to come up with a new way of doing something or a new idea, I find myself hitting this wall of either frustration or just tiredness where I'm just like, I'm exhausted. I can't do this anymore. How are these people doing it over and over again? And so much of it, I think, is coming up with a system, doing something in a certain order that works, and then just repeating that order. And I know for me, I've sort of come up with a system for writing where I sit 30 minutes a day and just write. If I stare at the wall, fine, but I can't look at the internet. I can't check my Twitter. I can't check my Instagram. I just have to write. And I think sitting in that position and putting my mind in a place where it's sort of goal-oriented, gear-oriented, just for 30 minutes a day, it really helps, because the first day it might suck, but at least you can go to bed saying, hey, I did my 30 minutes. It's kind of like working out, right? Next day, do the same thing. Sit in the same spot. I have my seltzer water. I kind of do things in a very systematic way. And I, use a pen and paper, and I jot down things. I don't listen to music. And I developed this system recently to kind of help me be creative. Try it with music, it's not as good. Try it without my seltzer, it's not as good. And I feel like now I've kind of developed a system where every day I can do this thing in this way that isn't Mount Everest. It's not like I'm creating a whole new thing every day or trying a new thing every day. I'm just repeating a pattern. And some days it's great and some days it's not great. But the aggregate, the total of everything together has helped me tremendously. Because there'll be days where it's like nothing, nothing, nothing. And then that Thursday, I'll pop out 10 minutes of stuff. And I'll go like, wow, this is 10 minutes of good stuff. And it really, really helps to know that you can rely on a system and not necessarily on being a genius of yourself every single time or trying to think that you're going to come up with genius every time. You're just following the system. And I think Jerry put it in a really good way.
People they don't come up with good, simple little systems. They just try and do it.
Yeah.
And to me, you're going to fail.
The second thing that I found is keeping it simple, making it easy. I think there's this theory in the world about, you got to grind, you got to suffer. The only way your work's going to make it is if you suffer and you grind. And I can't do that. I don't know if I'm too old or I just don't like it or my personality. It's just not in me to do. And I need to have things be simple. And that's really one of the keys to making you be able to do it over and over again. Consistency beats intensity.
It's like you got to treat your brain like a dog you just got. You got to, it's so stupid. The mind is infinite in wisdom. The brain is a stupid little dog that is easily trained. Do not confuse the mind with the brain. The brain is so easy to master. You just have to confine it. You confine it.
Yeah.
And it's done through repetition and systemization.
Very simple process. It's pen, it's paper, it's at home. It can happen at any time. I have a range that I usually pick, but it's not one of these things where it's like, it always has to be this and it always has to be that. I like to keep it simple. I like to keep it easy for myself. 30 minutes. I don't say like, oh, well, if I miss one day, I'll do 2 hours the next day. That falls back onto the system part. I keep it in a system, but I keep that system very simple. And I'm telling you, the consistency is the king, because there are days when it sucks and days when it's terrible. But if you do it over and over, all of a sudden it'll pop. At least for me, it did. And that sort of point really strung home for me, where I think sometimes I make things so complicated on myself. Like, you know what I mean? It has to be this. It has to be esoteric. It has to be deep. It's like, no, sometimes it could be silly. It could be awful. But you're getting the work done and you're keeping it simple for yourself in a system. That's been a tremendous thing for me. And lastly, treating yourself like a winner.
If you're getting on stage and standing in front of a group of strangers and trying to make them laugh, God bless you. I don't give a shit what you do. I don't care if it's old stuff, new stuff. I don't care if you're dirty, if you're clean. If you're going to stand up there by yourself and try and make me laugh, I love you. And I'm not going to criticize anything you do beyond that. I'm not going to criticize it. And you shouldn't criticize yourself either. So in other words, there's no, to go back to, do I gamify it? No, it's always a win. If I got up there and tried to do it, I win.
Yeah.
Even if I didn't reach what I'm trying to reach.
I don't know. It's a creative thing, but a lot of people, you're just very hard on yourself. I'm super hard on myself. Like, there's one of my favorite jokes from this comedian who says, you ever do something embarrassing and then think about it 8 years later? And that's so true. I feel like I'm super hard on myself if I have a bad set, or if I have a bad day writing, or if I go up and try something and it doesn't work. I'm like, you were stupid for trying it. Why did you try it that way? Nothing wins. And I think the punishing of trying something new, or the punishment of not being great, is detrimental to the soul. You know what I mean? It takes a long time to do anything. And in business and in life, in comedy, and anything creative, it's a process. It takes a long time. And I think it's important to feel like even just making that attempt, just going up and doing it, whether it's, practicing drawing or coding or anything you're trying to do. And for me, comedy, just the idea that you went up and did it, you got to treat yourself like a winner. You got to say, hey, even if it was a 4 out of 10, it doesn't matter. It's still, you went out, you did it, you're a winner. I have an ice cream sandwich at the end of every day. Chipwich is my favorite, by the way. And that's kind of what I do to treat myself. I put in that half hour of work. I go up on stage to the open mics. I try my jokes. And whether they pass, fail, boo this man, or I was revelation, I go, hey, you won because you tried. Enjoy your ice cream sandwich. Sleep like a baby, knowing that you're a winner just for putting yourself out there. Because that's the hardest part. You don't want to fail yourself just because you're not perfect every time. And I think hearing Seinfeld say this, the king of the king, the billionaire, to know that he also does these tricks to kind of keep it simple for himself, to have a system, to follow that system with very simple rules. And just by putting it out there, just by finishing, just by trying, you got to treat yourself like a winner. Have your own ice cream sandwich, whatever that may be. I recommend Chipwich. They're the best. This has been huge for me. And I heard this podcast a couple months ago. And ever since then, my productivity has been up. My pacing's been up. My jokes have been better. And I feel, have like momentum behind me. And I think that's an important thing for anything, to have that momentum where you feel like now I can rely on these sort of rules and these systems on days when I'm just not in the mood or I'm just not feeling it. And to know that I can just put yourself in the position. Because just by putting yourself in that, you're still a winner. You can still rely on the system. It's an easy thing to do. Don't worry. It's all going to work out. That sort of mental game, playing with yourself, has been tremendous for me. And so I wanted to share this with everybody just because I know, a lot of fellow comics feel this way. A lot of creatives feel this way, whether you're in music or art or whatever. It could be hard to kind of put it out there because you're working your day job and you're trying to make your dream job. And, to rely on things and to have things in play that sort of help that, I think are tremendous. And to know somebody like Jerry has to do it too, it's a relief to me to know. Seinfeld the king still has to rely on these little tricks. So it's okay that I have to too. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. This was a lot of fun. If you like content like this, if you like funny videos and cool stuff, please like and subscribe to the channel. And thanks for watching. Appreciate it.